On this day in history, we remember the remarkable individuals who shaped our world. Welcome to Who Died Today in History, where we honor their legacies. From artists to leaders, their impact lives on. If you find their stories meaningful, like, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay connected.
Leonardo da Vinci, the quintessential Renaissance polymath, died on May 2, 1519, at the age of 67 in Amboise, France. His death, attributed to natural causes, likely a stroke, occurred in the care of King Francis I of France, who had invited Leonardo to his court in the later years of his life. This peaceful end stood in stark contrast to the often tumultuous political climate of 16th century Europe, where wars, religious tensions, and shifting allegiances dominated. Leonardo's death marked not just the end of a life, but the closing of a chapter in Renaissance humanism, an era defined by boundless curiosity and reverence for human potential. Leonardo had moved to France around 1516, bringing with him some of his most prized works, including the Mona Lisa and St. John the Baptist. Though his most prolific artistic period had passed, his mind remained active, filled with notes on anatomy, engineering, and hydrodynamics. His final years, spent as a court intellectual, were marked by dignity and reflection rather than artistic creation, suggesting a cultural shift from the Florentine workshops to royal patronage as centers of influence. The immediate consequences of Leonardo's passing were subtle but significant. Though already respected in his lifetime, it was in the centuries following his death that his legend grew immensely. His burial at the chapel of Saint-Hubert at the Château d'Amboise symbolized his unique place between science and spirituality, intellect and artistry. His reputation would swell during the Enlightenment and again in the 19th and 20th centuries as he came to embody the ideal of the universal genius. Leonardo's death did not create immediate political ripples, but it left a void in the intellectual culture of Europe. He represented a convergence of art and science that would be increasingly divided in subsequent centuries. His notebooks, many unpublished during his lifetime, later became treasures of modern thought, inspiring inventors, artists, and scientists alike. The way Leonardo da Vinci is remembered reveals humanity's deep longing to celebrate intellect, creativity, and the synthesis of knowledge. Through countless biographies, museum exhibits, films, and fictional portrayals, he has been elevated to near mythic status. His legacy is not just in what he created, but in the boundless curiosity he embodied, reminding us that the pursuit of knowledge is itself a form of immortality. Osama bin Laden, the mastermind behind the September 11, 2001 attacks, met a violent end on May 2, 2011, when he was killed by U.S. Navy SEALs during a covert operation in Abbottabad, Pakistan. His death marked the culmination of a decade-long global manhunt following the most devastating terrorist attack on American soil. Killed by gunfire in a secret compound where he had been hiding, bin Laden's death symbolized not just a military victory, but a cathartic moment for a world still grappling with the trauma and consequences of 9/11. The violent nature of bin Laden's demise reflected the era's defining challenges: global terrorism, the war on terror, and shifting definitions of justice. Unlike traditional battlefield deaths or public executions, bin Laden's killing was surgical, covert, and executed without a trial, reflecting the post-9/11 security doctrine of preemptive and targeted action. For many, it was a necessary act of justice. For others, it raised questions about international law and the ethics of extrajudicial killings. The immediate consequences were profound. President Barack Obama announced the news in a late-night address, and scenes of spontaneous celebration erupted across the United States, from Times Square to the gates of the White House. The event boosted American morale and signaled a turning point in the U.S.-led war on terror. However, bin Laden's death did not dismantle al-Qaeda or end the threat of global extremism. In some ways, it shifted terrorism into a more decentralized and fragmented threat as other groups like ISIS rose to prominence. Bin Laden's death did not amplify a heroic legend, as many political deaths have done. Instead, it solidified his role as a villain in modern history, akin to historical figures like Adolf Hitler. He became a cautionary tale about radicalism, ideological extremism, and the global repercussions of asymmetric warfare. His compound was demolished, and his body buried at sea. Choices made to deny any physical sight of martyrdom or commemoration. In death, bin Laden is remembered not through celebration, but through cautionary reflection in books, films, and documentaries, such as Zero Dark 30, 2012. His legacy, steeped in violence and fear, underscores how power can be wielded destructively and how memory can be shaped to resist glorifying infamy. Afeni Shakur, political activist, former Black Panther, and the mother of rapper Tupac Shakur, died of natural causes on May 2, 2016, at the age of 69, reportedly from a heart attack in Marin County, California. Her passing marked the end of a life shaped by radical resistance, personal resilience, and cultural influence that spanned generations. As both a revolutionary and the steward of her son's legacy, Afeni embodied the struggle for Black liberation and artistic empowerment in the face of systemic oppression. Her death came during a period of renewed social activism in America, notably the rise of the Black Lives Matter movement. Afeni's early work with the Black Panther Party in the 1960s reflected an era of intense racial strife and governmental surveillance, and her later role in preserving Tupac's music and message revealed how her revolutionary values remained relevant. The quiet nature of her death, peaceful, at home, stood in poignant contrast to the intensity of her life's battles, including defending herself in court while pregnant with Tupac, and later navigating the complexities of fame, loss, and legacy. The immediate consequence of her death was a resurgence of attention on Tupac's life and art. Afeni had overseen his estate and the establishment of the Tupac Amaru Shakur Foundation, which promoted arts education and social activism. Without her guidance, concerns arose about the preservation of his message and the commercialization of his legacy. Her passing also invited reflection on the often overlooked role of women in revolutionary movements and in shaping cultural icons behind the scenes. Afeni's legacy has been immortalized through biographical works like Dear Mama, the FX documentary series that delves into her relationship with Tupac, highlighting the deep influence she had on his consciousness and artistry. Her life and death underscore the theme of enduring struggle, how personal and political identities intertwine, and how memory can serve as both inspiration and caution. In remembering Afeni Shakur, we confront the complex intersections of motherhood, activism, and artistic legacy. Her death reminds us that history is not only shaped by those in the spotlight, but by those who nurture and fight for them. Her story, both lived and remembered, speaks to the human yearning for justice, dignity, and remembrance beyond the grave. Lynn Redgrave, the distinguished English actress and member of the legendary Redgrave acting dynasty, died of breast cancer on May 2, 2010, at the age of 67. Her death came after a long and public battle with the illness, which she had fought with courage and openness for nearly a decade. Redgrave's passing reflected not only the personal challenges she faced, but also the shifting cultural values around health, vulnerability, and women's roles in both society and the arts. Born into one of Britain's most prominent theatrical families in 1943, Redgrave made a name for herself outside the shadows of her relatives through films like Georgy Girl, which earned her an Academy Award nomination and showcased a new kind of female protagonist: independent, awkward, and emotionally real. Her career spanned film, television, and stage on both sides of the Atlantic, and she became known for her honest portrayals of complex women. Redgrave's open discussion of her cancer diagnosis in later life marked a cultural turn toward greater transparency around illness and personal struggle. In her autobiographical play, Nightingale, and in interviews, she used her platform to raise awareness about breast cancer, helping to destigmatize the disease and speak to the growing movement of patient advocacy and public health education in the early 2000s. The immediate impact of her death was felt profoundly in the theater and film communities, not least because it followed the deaths of her niece Natasha Richardson in 2009 and her brother Corin Redgrave just weeks earlier. These losses underscored the fragility even of the seemingly larger-than-life figures in the public eye. Lynn's death brought renewed attention to her work and to the remarkable artistic contributions of the Redgrave family. Rather than shifting the trajectory of history, Redgrave's death amplified her legacy as an actress who resisted typecasting and as a woman who spoke openly about her personal struggles. She became a symbol of dignity, resilience, and the evolving roles of women both on and off screen. We immortalize Lynn Redgrave through film, theater, and advocacy. Her work and courage continue to inspire future generations of performers and survivors alike, reminding us that mortality often gives deeper resonance to lives lived with authenticity and grace. Efrem Zimbalist Jr., the distinguished American actor best known for his suave roles in television dramas like the F.B.I. and 77 Sunset Strip, died of natural causes on May 2, 2014, at the age of 95. His passing marked the quiet conclusion of a life that spanned almost a century, during which he evolved from the son of classical musicians into a symbol of American law, order, and elegance on screen. Zimbalist's death was peaceful, occurring at his Solvang, California estate. Unlike the violent or controversial deaths that often dominate public consciousness, his passing reflected the values of dignity and longevity, traits that also characterized his career. In an era when television was rapidly becoming the nation's dominant storytelling medium, Zimbalist represented the archetype of the idealized American man, principled, polished, and in control. As Inspector Louis Erskine in the F.B.I., Zimbalist worked closely with the actual F.B.I. to portray law enforcement in a heroic light, an image meant to counterbalance the growing skepticism of government institutions during the tumultuous 1960s. His death did not send political shockwaves or incite cultural upheaval, but it did prompt tributes from fans, former co-stars, and even the F.B.I. itself. Then-director James Comey released a statement praising Zimbalist for being a great friend to the Bureau and for helping to humanize the agency in the public eye. This reflected the lasting impression his performances had on American popular culture and institutions alike. Zimbalist's legacy is preserved through a rich archive of television episodes and films that continue to circulate. More importantly, his portrayals helped shape public attitudes during an era when the media played an increasingly powerful role in shaping national identity. In a time of social unrest, Zimbalist offered a calm, reassuring figure, one who reflected the yearning for order and decency amid chaos. The way we remember Zimbalist, through reruns, interviews, and public praise, demonstrates our human impulse to find meaning in mortality through memory. While some figures are immortalized through monuments or epic narratives, others like Zimbalist are remembered through the quiet power of consistent, comforting presence. Jeff Hanneman, founding guitarist of the legendary thrash metal band Slayer, died on May 2, 2013 at the age of 49. His death was due to liver failure, later attributed to alcohol-related cirrhosis. Although Hanneman had battled health issues stemming from a necrotizing fasciitis infection in 2011, reportedly caused by a spider bite, his underlying liver condition had gone largely undiagnosed until shortly before his death. Hanneman's death, while natural in medical terms, echoed the excesses and physical toll of a hard-living rock and roll lifestyle, a motif often entwined with the heavy metal genre. It underscored the dangers of untreated illness and substance abuse, challenges not uncommon among musicians who rise to fame in intense, fast-paced, and high-pressure subcultures. The early age at which he died reflected a broader pattern in rock history, joining the tragic company of artists who succumbed before their time, such as Jimi Hendrix and Kurt Cobain. The immediate aftermath of Hanneman's death sent shockwaves through the metal community. Fans and fellow musicians mourned the loss of a man whose riffs had helped define Slayer's brutal, uncompromising sound. Songs like Angel of Death and Raining Blood, both co-written by Hanneman, became genre-defining anthems. His technical proficiency and songwriting cemented his place as a pioneer of thrash metal, one of the Big Four, alongside Metallica, Megadeth, and Anthrax. Tributes poured in from around the globe, and Slayer continued touring. But the band's chemistry was irrevocably altered. Hanneman's passing did not merely amplify his legend, it solidified it. His death, especially given the mysterious infection and his reclusive retreat from public life in his final years, added a shroud of mythos. The band later paid tribute to him on their final album, Repentless, 2015, with the track Piano Wire, one of the last songs he had written. In the larger reflection of mortality, power, and memory, Hanneman's story reveals how deeply music entwines with identity and legacy. He is remembered through recordings, tattoos bearing his name, tribute concerts, and countless young guitarists mimicking his aggressive style. His life and death encapsulate the fierce individualism and dark intensity of the era he helped shape. Bobby Unser, one of the most iconic names in American motorsports, died of natural causes at his home in Albuquerque, New Mexico, on May 2, 2021 at the age of 87. Known for his fearless driving and fierce competitive spirit, Unser's death marked the end of an era for a family dynasty synonymous with the Indianapolis 500 and the golden age of American racing. Unser's passing reflected the values and challenges of a bygone motorsport era, one characterized by minimal safety regulations, high-stakes risk-taking, and the celebration of individual prowess. Competing during a time when fatalities were tragically common on the track, Unser emerged as both a survivor and a symbol of endurance. His 3 Indianapolis 500 victories came during decades when innovation, speed, and driver bravery defined the sport. The 1981 Indy 500 win became one of the most controversial in history, as he was initially stripped of the title due to an alleged infraction, only for the decision to be reversed months later. This legal and public drama underscored the increasing tension between tradition and regulation in modern racing. The immediate consequence of his passing was an outpouring of respect and nostalgia from across the racing world. Tributes from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and fellow drivers highlighted not just his record, but his vibrant, outspoken personality and his contributions to the sport long after retirement as a commentator and mentor. The Unser legacy, tied to his brother Al and nephew Al Jr., gained renewed attention, with Bobby remembered as a fierce competitor who never shied away from controversy or challenge. His death amplified the legend of the Unser family and served as a reminder of motorsports' evolution from its perilous roots to today's more safety-conscious landscape. Through memorials at racing events, feature documentaries, and dedicated exhibits in racing museums, Bobby Unser continues to be celebrated as a pioneer. In a broader sense, Unser's story reflects humanity's fascination with those who confront mortality with courage and audacity. We commemorate such figures through preserved footage, storytelling, and the reverence of their achievements. In remembering Bobby Unser, we honor the spirit of those who raced against both time and fate, and won. Gina Mastrogiacomo, a promising young actress known for her role in the 1990 film Goodfellas, tragically passed away in a car accident on May 2, 1986, at the age of 26. Mastrogiacomo's death was a sudden and heartbreaking loss, one that underscored the fragility of life in an era that was defined by youth, opportunity, and a growing celebrity culture. She was a rising star in Hollywood, with a talent that was beginning to shine, only to be extinguished far too early. The circumstances of Mastrogiacomo's death, caused by a car crash while she was on her way to a rehearsal, reflected the sense of vulnerability that defined the era's glamour. The 1980s, a time of excess and indulgence in American culture, were not just marked by the booming entertainment industry, but also by the darker undercurrents of fame. Mastrogiacomo's death, while not caused by any criminal or violent actions, underscored the reality that fame often comes with its own set of risks and challenges. It also reflected the transient nature of Hollywood's success during the era, where young stars could rise rapidly only to face untimely deaths or disappear into obscurity. The immediate consequences of her passing were felt deeply by her friends, family, and fans, as well as by the film industry, which had just begun to see the breadth of her potential. Her role in Goodfellas had been a significant breakout moment, and she was poised to have a more extensive career in the years to come. Mastrogiacomo's death did amplify her legend, albeit in a tragic way, as her potential was never fully realized. It reminded the public of the fleeting nature of fame, especially in Hollywood, and the way in which talent can sometimes be cut short by random misfortune. In terms of how her death reflects humanity's relationship with mortality and memory, Mastrogiacomo's passing is a poignant example of how we immortalize those taken too soon. In Hollywood, such figures are often remembered through their work and the promise they held. In the case of Mastrogiacomo, her brief appearance on screen remains a testament to what could have been, forever sealed in the hearts of those who appreciated her talent. Through art, like Goodfellas, we memorialize such figures, giving them a lasting place in cultural history. David Rappaport, a talented British actor known for his roles in films like Time Bandits and The Wizard, tragically passed away on May 2, 1990, at the age of 41. His death, by suicide, was a heartbreaking moment in an era when mental health struggles were often overshadowed by the glitter of Hollywood fame. Rappaport's passing reflected the silent battles that many actors faced behind the public facade of success, a reality often hidden behind the glamour of the 1980s entertainment industry. Rappaport's death was particularly tragic because it came at a time when he was in the midst of his career peak, with promising roles ahead of him. The 1980s and early 1990s were a period of rapid cultural change, both in terms of the entertainment industry and public awareness of mental health issues. The pressures of Hollywood stardom, expectations, constant public scrutiny, and the challenges of maintaining personal identity amid fame are likely contributing factors to his death. Rappaport had long struggled with depression and had experienced a difficult battle with his own mental health, which was exacerbated by the demands of the industry. His death shone a light on the darker side of fame, one often masked by the dazzling images of celebrity. The immediate consequences of Rappaport's passing were felt deeply by his colleagues and fans. His death raised awareness about the importance of addressing mental health within the entertainment industry, particularly among actors who often faced immense pressure. While Rappaport's death was a tragedy that cut short a promising career, it did not immediately shift the trajectory of history, but it did serve as a stark reminder of the vulnerabilities inherent in the entertainment world. His death amplified his legend not through the roles he played, but through the circumstances surrounding his passing. It forced a conversation about the human side of fame, mental health struggles, and the often overlooked consequences of Hollywood life. Rappaport's death reveals much about humanity's relationship with mortality, power, and memory. In an era where mental health was not widely discussed, especially among public figures, his death highlighted the pressures and isolation that can accompany fame. As a society, we often immortalize such figures not just for their roles in art, but for the personal challenges they overcame, or were tragically unable to overcome. Through his roles, Rappaport is remembered, and through his death, his struggles are woven into the larger narrative of mental health awareness in the entertainment industry.